Welcome to Project Peak Performance. I'm here with Dave Gibbons and Rob Brady. This week, we've got a special episode because Rob has been spending his casual weekends with the one and only Wim Hof, who's, I think, stardom and fame of Wim Hof. I think it was a Channel 4 celebrity show that he did. And that's when everyone really kind of like, wow, this cold water therapy, this Wim Hof guy is crazy. Out looking like Tarzan in the Arctic barefoot. And I was taken back for it. Patrice Evra actually was on it, the old Man United left back, and he was amazing on it. So because Rob's now besties with him, we thought we'd do this episode to really get an idea of what you took away from it. What an amazing gift it was, by the way, by Iceberg. You know, that's unbelievable. But we want to know the key takeaways. So first and foremost, Rob, give us a little bit of a brief on what it was like, you know, rather than getting into the values and the crux of it, the takeaways. But what was the setting like? Paint the picture for us.
So it's just out. So it's about an hour outside Amsterdam. So hours drive from Amsterdam Airport, 45-minute flight over from the UK. It's literally a classic Netherlands sort of tiny little village location, tiny little villages. You're lucky to even get like a restaurant or a pub in those sort of areas. Really nice houses, stunning houses in the area. Former agent coming out of myself.
Yeah.
And then Wim's place is literally off one of like the main, you've got main like dual carriageways. He's literally tucked off only like literally a few minutes in the middle of nowhere. And it's just almost like you can tell like he's just gone, here's a flat bit of land. I'm just going to build everything I've ever wanted in there. So you go down a really nice driveway, you're meted by some of the instructors. And in there you've got like a massive rockery that's got a 4-meter dive thing. You can jump into a plunge bit. Loads of, obviously, of course, loads of ice barrels everywhere. And then it's almost like I'd say it's like a jungle because he loves his plants and his trees. It's like a greenhouse with a jungle, which is almost, and then it's like a martial arts space inside there. And all like when I first arrived, you had all like the drums playing and all like the chimes and that lot. So you don't know, far-fetched from whatever I thought I'd ever do, but I love the setting of it. Proper calm there.
Nice.
Were you nervous turning up to it?
Massively, yeah. Purely
Yeah,
because one, unknown, and two, it's something I've never done before, but something that I've always actually wanted to do. And so many different people to life.
When you say something that you've never done before, what they go into like an experience? Because you've been like cold water, you've been doing cold water therapy for what, well over a year now.
499 today, 500 tomorrow.
Wow.
Wow. 500 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Love that. What you can do? Anything special? You gonna make it extra cold? Have a beer in it? What's the plan?
One of those little party poppers. I started dipping the kids' feet in there today, actually, 499.
Saw it.
Ted went back for round 2. He actually asked for more. He went, come back, can you pick me up again? He was in there tapping away.
Yeah.
Future cold water boy himself.
That's meant.
That's the setting. Sorry, Dave, you go.
I was just going to say, yeah, what about that? So you said you've got all the cold waters, you've got some like karate thing going on in the side and everything. So I mean, I've seen some pictures of this, just snippets, but I'm trying to build a big picture of what's going on there now. So when you go in there, I mean, do you know what you're going to be doing before you get there?
So in classic Wim Hof style, it gives you an itinerary and it says at the bottom, this will subject to change because of Wim Hof, because of how he is. And if you watch any of his YouTube stuff, he does exactly the same thing with any guests he's on. Like he doesn't follow a program, he follows the feeling, Dave, than anything else. So when we initially got there, Wim wasn't there, so we agreed by all the instructors. And for anyone listening, it's like basically like a martial arts center with a greenhouse on top, with a load of chimes going on, surrounded by loads of tropical trees, and then like, you know, little rockeries and loads of rocks everywhere, and like little yurts outside. So you just feel comfortable in there. And then obviously we had an hour of just meeting different guests of different walks of life, and you know, naturally, like he's a vegan himself, so all natural produce food sat on the side there for you to use. So it was just, I don't know, you just felt comfortable as the moment you walked through the door. Then you would have, I don't know, my expectations were different to the reality as always.
And what would you say was the one thing that surprised you the most out of the whole experience? Surprised you the most?
Breathwork more than anything else.
Why is that?
Because I went there because of cold water therapy, and a lot of people went there because they did breath work and they've never done cold water therapy. But I just learned more around the science of breath work and experiencing it under Wim and his instructors, which is a whole different level. I'd say actually collective breath work. That's what I'd probably say. Collectively breathing with a load of more people rather than just on your own has such a powerful more feeling when you hear the room doing it and everyone going through that same process, connection wise, than maybe doing it on your own in the lounge, on the floor, etc., or in your bedroom.
What did you experience when you'd done it, when you were like finished, or when you were going through that breath work? What was the kind of, what were you feeling? What were you experiencing? What were you thinking about? What was going on at that moment?
Good question. So I've training to be a breathwork coach anyway. So I've learned different techniques of breathwork, but not the Wim Hof way. And Kel, my partner, introduced me to Wim Hof when I first met her. She was the person that got me into cold showers, and that's started my whole route of doing this. So she introduced me to some form of breathwork from Wim Hof, but I always found it a bit of a struggle to get into it because of the nature of it. So the first day we had breathwork under Wim, and usually it's 30 to 40 rounds of in, out. So one rep is like, but you're pulling in, pulling out, pulling in, pulling out with no stop effectively. And also like teaches you about when you're breathing in, you're pulling your belly out. When you're breathing, like when you're pushing out, you're sucking yourself in, your belly button in. So it's like proper going for it. So you have 30 to 40 rounds of that. Then effectively you breathe out fully, hold, and he will then tell you when to effectively breathe back in. So you hold, and then you pull back in, and then you hold again. And then that's effectively one cycle. So usually you do 3 to 4 or 5 cycles of that. With Wim, being Wim, the rounds were almost like 70 to 100 cycle breathworks with longer holds. So on Saturday, I experienced what you call an ajna chakra, which is like a spiritual alignment of like a tingling sensation between your eyeballs. And I didn't know what that meant. I thought, that this is well weird. Like I literally came out of the first session, especially when you've got Wim doing it with you in the room, his bellowing voice, and you've got the drums playing, and you've got all this thing going through, like, and you've got a whole collective group of people. And obviously where it's like in a greenhouse, when I opened up for the rounds of it, like literally the clouds are coming over, and I don't mind saying, like I literally shed my tears through my eyes because it was a real spiritual, like, I don't know, it was like a trauma on whatever it was. It was like a real with myself. And since then I've felt different to the person I was before then.
Wow, that's crazy. But
and
I've seen people do it on telly when he's done it, but hearing it from someone you know, you kind of live in that moment, you can sort of feel that a little bit stronger. It's interesting you say you feel different. What way do you feel different, would you say?
I feel centered. So when I went away from it, I was a bit like, everyone was like, oh, what's your experience? And I felt a bit like no one was saying that. I thought, I wonder what that feeling was and why I feel why I do now. Because obviously I cried. Clouds were forming over to open up my eyes. So it was a proper centered moment for me. So when I got back, I Googled like, what's this? And I was like, wow, I experienced the third eye effective in breath work. And that's the reason why I felt it. It's almost what it says. It almost feels like your body aligns back to your alignment with your soul and your spiritualness. And he talks about like the 4 types of being effectively, like, you know, you've got your health, you've got your body, you've got spiritual, and you've got your mind, and like how it all aligns back in. And that's effectively what I felt. So now I don't know, I feel like calmer in my stomach.
Nice.
That makes sense of any way.
Yeah,
I'm visualizing this as like, you know, when you see like a 3D picture without 3D glasses, and you got like 4 or 5 different colors of the same image, that you've kind of like gone into like 3D. You've like all the little bits have like gone into one 3D version. That's how I'm sort of visualizing what you're saying.
Yeah, and this pretty much that. Yeah.
So when can you explain? So when you said then, I mean, I'm imagining the lightness in the stomach is similar to beforehand feels like low-level guilt in the stomach constantly. And that seems to have been lifted.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, that's been going for quite some time. And I know the link to that is linked to Chris, like losing Chris. And it was stages of grief, effectively. And that was the moment where I basically sat there and I shed a tear because I felt like, wow, I'm not experiencing this. And I just thought about the journey that I've been on. And it was almost like calm. And that's not to say like I'm a Zen person walking around now and that sort of side to it. But yeah, at the weekend, I saw two of my friends and we were playing darts together. And, you know, they were like, come on, where's your breath work now, mate? So, but just there was a feeling. And this is coming from someone who thought all of this was a load of hocus pocus bullshit years ago. Like, breath work, cold water therapy. So that was, Ian, when you said the original question, your expectation, how'd you feel? Like, there was almost that inner conflict of like, that niggly thing going, what are you doing this sort of stuff? And then it's like, no, actually, I want to do this. And then that was almost like a realignment going, wow, this is why I'm here. And this is why it's meant to have been. So it's found me a whole new, more respect towards breathwork. And I was exploring it anyway, but more from a sporting side to it. How do I prep myself more for the runs? How do you get yourself into that certain way of the body gearing up for that than it needing to be calmed down? That makes sense, because cold water therapy's calmed me down over the years.
It's amazing what breath work can do
Yeah.
in that way. And then when you linking it to like fitness, one of the things that I was once told when I was really struggling with Achilles tendonitis when I started running was a lot of that is posture led. And as you run, you slouch because you become fatigued and your muscles become fatigued. So you naturally sort of feel your back kind of slouch over. And one of the things that eradicate cramp and stop the slouching is someone said to me, every time you tick a mile off on your measure, is take 10 deep breaths in, and instantly you posture yourself back up. So every mile, you're kind of resetting your body back to the original position you're meant to be in, all from expanding the diaphragm and filling your body with oxygen. And so just that in physically, mentally, obviously the power is there that you've just described, but physically as well, that has a big impact on it.
And I remember you saying that because I've used that in my running, and that's what got me to explore. This is the power of connections with us. Is like I learned that, and I got to explore, and I thought that works really well. How do I gear myself up to start a run? So when you look at your SNS and your PNS system, certain breath work works for either sides, and even what Wim Hof was exploring, like that. The first day we did that, so it was almost like a jump into the fire. Wim Hof then left for the afternoon. And he said, I'll be back tomorrow. So then we went into like cold water therapy. But the second day we did another round of it, but we spent an hour really going down into like how and why does breath work? So we were partnered up with pairs and we were going through that process of like, when you suck breath in, like we were working out where does that change your dynamics of your body? Like feel it in the side here, your chest, in the lower part of your back, you can feel it expand there. So like we're learning like actually the power of expansion of your breath and actually really filling up your body with oxygen, and then learning how does that impact your body, and also the science behind it, which is really, really powerful.
That's amazing. So from this, and obviously the breathing, Wim Hof is known predominantly for the cold stuff, massively for the breathing. But you shocked me a little bit actually, mate, with the breathing here. I know you've got a lot of experience with the cold water therapy before, but I suppose what the question I'm asking now is, now you've been there and you've had this insight as to and this new information, what was the importance of breath work before you went in? And what's your new understanding of what breath work is today?
So Wim's trilogy is cold, breathwork, and mindset. Like that's his three trilogy. So he couldn't do cold water therapy without the breathwork.
Okay.
So that's how he gets into his particular state. So one of his head coaches did Mount Kilimanjaro in 18 hours from start to finish doing breathwork.
Wow.
So not only like they talk about, he gets to think, or he basically says, get higher for your own supply. So certain parts to it that are on basic Lemis terms that I was taught was your feel good factor and your stress part, if you're looking at two balloons, you know, like we almost operate in that stress part. And obviously the breath work opens up that feel good, well-being, purpose part of your brain. And actually the science shows that continuous breath work actually has the same replication, same parts of your brain opens up as when you smoke weed. Like when you get that good feel good high of smoking cannabis or having a drink, it's exactly the same receptors in your brain are activated through breath work.
Wow.
That's what he says, get higher for your own supply. And I certainly felt it, mate. After the first day, I don't know what he said for about 10 minutes afterwards, but it took me about 10 minutes to get off my head off the floor because I was like,
he's not slipping anything in the coffees, is he? You do know this is Amsterdam.
no.
Right,
But
okay. Cool, that way.
because of the levels of oxygen you're taking into your body, and also it goes from the acidic to alkaline, and you're alkaline in your body, and also you're bringing in and producing more white blood cells for cold water therapy and the breath work.
Yep.
So from the breathwork side to it, I knew it was very important. I just experienced a deeper level and respect for why it's important, and understanding. So like Wim's breathwork, a lot of people I've spoken to since doing it, they said, "Oh, I tried the Wim Hof method, and I was quite anxious, and I felt it was too much, too quick for me." And even just the science behind understanding that. So like, if you're in your PNS system or your SMS system, so if you're in your operating of your SMS system, you try and do Wim Hof therapy.
So just one second. So parasitic, your different nervous systems. Yeah. So SS and just explain to people what they are if they're not.
So like, I'll give you a rundown of it. So like sympathetic or nervous system is like things like your pupils are dilated, your heart is accelerating, you have issues with maybe your stomach, even down to things like low libido. So as a species, we are constantly stuck in really the SMS system. You think about for your daily life, you read the news, all that sort of side to it, like stresses with people, and actually understanding like we stress over stuff that has no meaning. So we're already stuck in that cycle, and that's where you get acidic style bodies, because you're taking a lot more oxygen, like carbon dioxide effects in your body because you're not regulating your breath work properly. Your cortisol levels are high, and that's where you start to have diseases appear in your body. White blood cells, low count, so that's where you get receptions to illness. That's why you see a lot of people that are stressed in workplace environments are off for a lot of sickness, because it coincides with all of it. So we operate from a species, we operate from that part, and that is from a primal instinct that is very unnatural for us as a human species. That's the reason why the world the way it is at the moment. So Wim's goal is to try and get people from a natural perspective to understand that there's a PNS system, there's an alternative system to you. And your PNS system is effectively like, you know, slowing down your heart rate, constricts your pupils, higher fertility rates, like things like that, like a stimulation within your body. So it's like SNS is high, which you need at some point. PNS is, going to relax, go to bed.
So you got rest and digest and fight and flight.
Yeah, exactly.
The other name for it, isn't it?
Yeah. So if you look at that part to it, if we're constantly operating in an SMS system, like we are prone to that. And actually, from a primal instinct, SNS should only really react when I think we had a podcast with, it's like the saber-toothed tiger's coming out. You need to fight or flight. You need to fight or flight. But you need that in your body still to activate that. You can't be like, oh, there's a saber-toothed tiger over there, I'm going to sit here and chill. Like, it doesn't happen. So like, but we are constantly in that SMS state, and sometimes it's addicted. Like, I think it was one of the Diary CEO podcasts recently talked about we're addicted to SNS, be it feeling that way. Through breath work, what that does is 2 rounds of Wim Hof breath work will activate the PNS part of your system. So you actually flip over to that calmness in your thing, more oxygen in your blood, alkaline in your body effectively, increasing your white blood cells. And obviously that is then linked to obviously having the cold water therapy at the same time. So that's the reason why they say get high for your own supply, because 4 rounds of it in the morning before you go to work, you're in a different operating system. So that's the thing I really learned about it. So what I also learned was, like, if you're new to this and you've done it or you're about to trial it and you're in a heightened state of anxiety, slow down your activity to Wim Hof. So rather than going like into that, slow it in. Because what you're effectively doing is you're easing yourself out of SNS because you're in a heightened state of anxiety and you want to go, all of a sudden it's like, it's going to make you even worse. So even that I learned was like, if you are in a heightened state, and I was explaining this to one of my mates who I got really into cold water therapy and breath work, and he's loving it. And he works for another agency in London, real high paced job, like branch manager of the second largest in London, letting side, real intense job. And he said, this has all massively changed how I approach my work in life. He said, so I was explaining to him the other day, and I was like, if you're heightened state of anxiety, what I learned was 2 rounds of slowly getting into it. It's a bit like a locomotive train. It has to start. So then you tease yourself into that PNS side of your system, and then you do the 3 or 4 rounds afterwards. You're in that PNS system.
Yeah.
It's the same for any workout, isn't it? You know, if you're going to the gym, you don't go into the gym and go, right, first set, let's bench press PB, let's go.
Yeah.
Like you just wouldn't do that because your pec would just fly off. Like you just pull the whole thing. But you go in, you loosen up, get the blood flow going, you know, get the heart rate elevated, do some warm-up sets, let the body know what's going on, get the breath right, get the system activated into whatever you're about to do. Same with a running race. You know, you don't go in and just fly off on a 5K park run. You know, you have a kilometre warm-up, you get into it, you do some dynamic stretching. And it's you're effectively, with breath work, operating your diaphragm, aren't you? You're operating your whole body, you know, you're engaging it, and it makes sense to start it slow and build it up to the point where it's then capable of operating that way. Do you think this, like we were talking about Gary Brecker and Dana White, and after that show I actually watched Dana White's new morning routine. And the guy's a multimillionaire, so he's got like the elite of the elite. You know, what he does in his morning, we are not capable of doing. But one of the things that he does do is he spends 10 minutes walking on the treadmill with like an oxygen mask on. So I don't know what the percentage is, but he increases his oxygen levels through just a brisk 10-minute walk. And a lot of people would say, you know, if you've got an injury, ice it, but you're effectively icing it to almost get the old blood flow out to allow the new, and then when it warms back up, the new blood flow comes through. But with breath work, effectively you're doing a similar thing to like icing an injury almost, aren't you?
You're effectively circulating carbon dioxide in your body. So basically circulating acidic and making it more alkaline.
Yeah.
And that's the cycle of consciously breathing more oxygen into your body. So like even certain things, like if you look at some of the studies, like breath work through the nose increases oxygen intake by 20%.
Yeah.
Breath work for your mouth. So there's little hacks here, but Wim was basically saying there's little techniques, there's tweaks here, but the main thing is just breathe. That's what he just said, just breathe. Because like, and consciously applying it every single day, that you spend, 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes to do that before you start your day, you're putting yourself into a different state. Cortisol levels are dropping. You've naturally got more oxygen in your body. And so like going back to what you were saying, Ian, one of the things I was looking at for breath work was putting yourself into that SMS system effectively before a race by doing alternative nostril breathing is something that activates your body to go, right, we're going to be doing some form of strenuous activity here. So we need to get into a different gear effectively.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things which I took away from it massively. So like you can use either or depending on what you're looking to achieve. So if you're looking to have like more relaxed, breathwork's really good for that part. But if you're wanting to go to the gym, charge yourself up, like they said, obviously before races and stuff like that. So like one of the things I'll be wanting to do before Endure 24 weekend is get some breathwork going before I started, because he's saying like basically what you want to do is you want to put as much oxygen into your blood as possible. Like, so like all of a sudden you're ready to take it all on and it's circulating a lot better.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
It is really interesting. I mean, when you look at this, so you've got the different energies, and when we come to, I always find for a pleasant life, the highest energy generally wins, but it needs to be matched with the mindset as well. With the breathing techniques, so we've spoke a bit about breathing techniques on this podcast before. I think we've gone into like box breathing and maybe the 4-7-8 breathing, which are the two main ones that I use, and they're mainly to calm down. But one thing that I'm really interested in is what you were just saying there. You can have breath work do the opposite. You can get yourself into a really calm state and lower your heart rate. But on the flip side, you can bring that back up. So I suppose the question is, when do we want to be doing these for the most effective ways, really, Rob? I mean, obviously you're going to want the relaxed one maybe at nighttime, but how would you implement these into your daily routine? And do you have anything that you could pass over to us and the guys who are listening of simple techniques that, let's say, what's the easiest technique to lower the heart rate, get you really calm, and what's the simplest technique that you found to get that up from the experience that you had?
So some of the techniques that was a question asked. Do you do it before and you do it in the morning, or do you do it in the evening? We'll see. They recommend in the morning purely because you're setting yourself up for the day. So you're basically deloading whatever happened the day before and you're starting that process. So you're starting your day with lower cortisol levels, relaxed into your day and going for it. They also said as well, if you try and do it in the evening before you go to bed, you've got loads of oxygen. If you've got loads of supply to your body, so you might feel like a bit more energized effectively. So you really want it in the beginning to feel like it's not like you feel relaxed, but you'll still feel energized because you've got oxygen in your blood. It's a different to have cortisol levels that making you energized, because it's like having caffeine in it.
Yeah.
Like it gives you energy, but it's bad energy. So it's like you still need that pump. In the evening, I would say more, you can still do it in the evening. Like Wim Hof method would still work at that capacity, just not, I wouldn't say do it straight before bed.
Yeah.
But you can still do breath work in the evening. For calmness, box breathing is a very simple technique because you can do it anytime. You can do it on a bus, tracing a window, 4, 4, 4, 4, or whatever count you feel like you want to do for that. Alternative nostril breathing is a great technique to get you up again. So if you're going to go and do something, so alternative nostril breathing is basically the alternative, hold it in, pulling it across, holding, breathing out for the other side.
Okay.
And that's like a regulation one to be like, right, we're going to be doing something like need to get you going again.
Yeah.
But like with anything, everything's easily available on the internet. Explore it with basic term first, like trial this 2 rounds or 1 round, see how you get on. Don't jump into it and try and do 8 rounds because you'll probably pass out. And the recommended thing out of all of this is make sure you're sitting down, laying down, don't stand up, don't do it driving, don't do it next to a cliff, don't do it next to the edge of a building, don't do it on a ladder.
Yeah.
Because like some of the Wim Hof methods, you get to the point where you effectively almost can black out to some extent because of the oxygen flowing through your body and what you're doing to it.
I've got to say, mate, well, I tried it about 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago now. I got first, somebody told me about it. So I tried it, watched one of the videos. I'm sat in the living room. I nearly passed out, mate. I literally am just breathing out like this. And it probably lasted about a minute or something like that. And I'm just like, oh, fuck it. I just like poof on the couch. And I literally, mate, I thought I was going to pass out. And after that, I stopped doing it because I was a bit scared that I was going to knock myself out.
Yeah, so you do 2 to 3 rounds, but that is the psychology change in it. That's what you pierce through. He says, like, you're going to feel like you're passing out, and that's the bit you take beyond it. So like that's where they almost train you to go beyond what your brain thinks is possible to what your body's going to take on, and that's where you go into this almost heightened state of, wow, this is powerful.
How much do you think is a benefit of having the setting that you had? Because you said it's a bit like being in a jungle, a bit like being in a greenhouse. Obviously, you've got all the plants giving off, the natural reserves, whereas you could then also visualize 20 people in a hotel room or a gym with no plants and air conditioning. And I actually, when you were describing it, I actually thought that's a bit gross. Like having that amount of people all breathing out in the same room. That's what I instantly thought. But then I was like, oh no, he's in like a greenhouse with all the plants. But then there's also the element of you could be in an office building with aircon or no plant. Do you think that plays a part in the quality of what you're breathing in as well?
I think massively, yeah. I think most breathworks that I see locally, or you see it like on social media, it has to have some element of environments to with that. If you think about when we did our Project Peak Performance up Edale, like I would have done the old horse dance up at Edale with you guys, and that's what one thing it'd be cool to do, like with breath work up there, because you'd be natural, you'd feel it, and obviously not standing up or near the cliff edge of it. But you're right in what you're saying, Ian. I think there has to be some element of who's doing it, and the setup, because it needs to be a yoga environment set up, you know, making sure you feel comfortable because you're on the floor for quite some time. But equally, like Cal does Wim Hof breathwork, our partner, and I know when she's done it, she'll walk in from the garden and she looks like she's just smoked a joint. And I'd be like, she goes like that, walk through. I was like, she, before I even say it, I know she's had it. She's like, yep, she's done a bit of few rounds of Wim Hof, I feel well relaxed, and you could tell like she looks like she's stoned.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now we're going to have to do a small series, mate, if you don't mind doing it, where you can show some of these breathing techniques. I don't think we'll have enough time on here today to go through them all, but I just think that it's fantastic how, and we spoke online, offline about how we see the world now and the diets in the world, this, that, and the other. And it seems that these really simple, easy to do at home techniques that can literally transform your life. They can help with how you feel about your day, help with depression, help with loads of different things. And it's as simple as it seems to be putting the right ingredients into your body. You know, none of this is amazing. Go in cold water will shock you. Breathe true air. I would imagine the setting would be a lot better with it being like in a forest. Like, you're going to have a higher oxygen level. The oxygen concentration in that room must be better. But just that we're sat here and we're looking for, you know, online for these miracle, give me a pill that will make me calm in 2 seconds, do this that will do that, you know, and it's all seems to be there for free. And not a lot of people either know about it or are doing it, and it just absolutely fascinates me, all of this stuff. It really does, that you can breathe a little bit and get in cold water and have these huge you know, impacts on your life. Wow, absolutely amazing. So what would you say, Rob, was the breath work was the number one thing that maybe surprised you or shocked you and opened your eyes a little bit? But what would you say now to any of our listeners that are potentially thinking about getting into cold water therapy but are a bit scared, or wanting to understand a bit more? What was the big takeaway from you? What was there a wow, this is amazing, everyone needs to know about this?
Yeah, so like the cold water therapy was a 2-stage part. So first day, Wim comes in, gets you to do a load of breath work, hires a kite, and he's like, oh, I'm going to leave you this guy. He like climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in about 18 hours. The guy's a legend in his own self, and he had obviously different instructors. And he said, right, we're going to do 5 minutes of ice bath. Some of those people had never done ice baths in their life, literally none of them. So they're all petrified. And you're talking like a big hot tub, sunken down, and the ice layers are like this. So it's literally, you're talking, I think it's like half a ton of ice in there. So it's not like a little bit of coldness, and there's about 10 of you can jump in there. So you jumped in there, just fall to the brim. So 5 minutes in there. And Wim talked a lot. The bit that I took away from most of it, he talked about the psychology of why you're doing what you're doing and how you center yourself. So he was saying, like, the reason why I could do this cold water therapy and I could get into all of this stuff, is the fact that, like, centering your mind, so that when you do get into the cold, you don't think about, he said, the moment you think about cold, the moment you think about it being thingy, like Ian, we're talking off air, you kick yourself out of it. That's when hypothermia kicks in, because you're not regulating your temperature. Mm-hmm. And what's mad about it is that's what he was talking about. He was saying, like, in the science that they looked at the studies, he was in for 80 minutes into a cold thingy. They had a belt around him, pumping cold water around him as well. And he actually managed to heat up his body during that process. So the first day was 5 minutes. People jumped in there, and you could see everyone around there felt more powerful afterwards, because I managed to do something that I never thought I could do. Next day was 10 minutes. So, and also like this, what you need to do after a cold water therapy, getting into cold water therapy, the mindset change and stuff like that. But also afterwards, what the do's and don'ts of doing cold water therapy. Like, don't go and get into a hot shower straight away. Don't try and go out for a run, because you're going to put your body straight into shock. Effectively, everything constricts when you get into cold water therapy. Mm-hmm. So the moment you get hot again, opens up. So if you open up too hot, that's where you get into shock.
Yeah.
So for me, because of the resilience of now almost doing 500 days of cold water therapy, for me, I literally got in there and I was like swimming in a warm bath. And that's not to say discredit it was not cold. It was the fact that, like we were saying, I'd prepared myself for it. I knew what I was getting into. I was excited about it. I thought, yeah, this is going to be it because this is going to be awesome. And I felt warm in there. I didn't feel one point, even the 10 days later, I felt warm. But that was the compounding action of getting in cold water therapy every single day for all those days, the resilience of it.
Was there anyone that had a problem that hadn't obviously done it previously? Was there anyone that was struggling with it?
No, like literally there was people there like chattering. You could tell like they were trying to continue their focus on it, and like you're almost in the group chatting away and stuff like that. But everyone still completed it. I was just the idiot that at the end of it, like after 10 minutes, I was like, can I dunk my head underwater? So I like went underneath it and then come back out of it. And the guy was like, you do this, don't you? I was like, yeah. He goes, because everyone else was out of that straight away.
You're just like doing backstroke.
Yeah. Fist bumping Wim in the in the cold tub.
So like cold water therapy, a great one for that, for the starters of it. Don't read how many minutes you've got to do and the temperature of the water and all that sort of obsession around it. Get a plastic, first thing is you can download Wim's app. You can do cold showers. So like on there, it gives you a challenge to start that challenge. 15 seconds of cold water shower at the end of your shower, which I started with. Increase up to like a couple of minutes. That's all you need to do. I did that for a whole year before that. And then I decided to go, right, I want to take us a little bit further. So I got one of those Lumi pods, those plastic pods. Did that on like 22nd of January 2023. So that's almost 500 days tomorrow. Started with that, did that for almost a year. And my job was always to be 1 to 3 minutes a day as a minimum. Yes, I can extend on beyond it, but it was a process of getting up every morning, not wanting to do it, whether it's cold, wet, windy, whatever it might be. I'm just going to tell my brain I'm going to do this, I'm going to get in there and go for that process. And actually, when you look at the science behind it, just by the breath work of breathing, going in and out of it and regulating that part, it's another process of taking you from your SNS to your PNS system. It's a 1 minute, that's all they said. After a minute, that's why you feel calm.
Yeah.
Because actually you've activated the other part to it. So, and that doesn't really change in a lot of water temperatures. So that doesn't change at 1 degree as it changes to 15 degrees. And that's what people don't really understand. Yeah. It's only brown fats and stuff like that can be lost in lower temperatures over a sort of period of time.
Yeah. So even so, at what temperature would you say then, Rob? And maybe you do or don't know this answer. Because when I've got a cold tub at home. At the moment, we've got to put ice in it because it's sitting at around 17 degrees as the normal. So yeah, got to put a little bit in there. But could I jump in at 17 degrees for a minute and still get the benefits from a nervous system?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the brown fats might not build as much, but do I get the calming? Because when I get into a cold tub now, I try to make sure it's under 15 degrees. I'll be honest, I'm a bit scared once it gets below 10. It shits me up a little bit, but I still do it. But yeah, at 17, I got in it the other day and I'm thinking, it's too hot. This is pointless. I'm just sat in a cold puddle for no benefit. So I kind of got out. But
so 15 degrees, yeah, is a good max, really, should be trying to aim for.
Yeah.
But that's not to say it still doesn't work from a psychological point.
Yeah.
And also from a regulatory point. When you look at it, when you go abroad and you jump into a cold pool, it's still that moment of, oh God, it's cold. You're still going to get that because the outside temperature is different to the water temperature. So it's never going to be 15 degrees if it's 1 degree's outside temperature. So it's always going to be 2 alternating temperatures that you're playing around with. And that's the reason why I said after a minute, you will feel that way because you're going, I'm cold here, but it's done the job of what it needs to do, which is 1, take you out of your hamster wheel daily life. You feel like you need to get up and have a coffee and do the normal comforting stuff to get yourself activated. But instead of going, right, over jump into a cold shower, I go outside and battle the elements whatever day and just jump in there for a minute. That's the reason why I've just said a minute. A lot of people have messaged and said, oh, I need to do 8, 9, 10, 20, whatever minutes. That's ego. That's ego led. Like, do that consistently because a lot of people I speak to start that and then I speak to them like 2 weeks later and go, how did you get on? And they're like, oh, I haven't been able to do it because I ain't had the time. And So it's like 1 to 3 minutes a day. It's easy.
We've got a little routine now. It's like the coffee machine at home. It takes about 3 minutes to make 2 coffees on there. Perfect. So we get in, I heat the milk up, get it going, go and get in the hot tub while the coffee beans are churning. Then as I'm getting out, Claire's got me coffee, and then she jumps in it straight after me. So it's like setting that routine of what we're doing every single morning. And yeah, we try to change a few things, all to align with this type of stuff to get us down. But I just think fascinating, mate. Thanks for
So I'm
So
thinking
when you,
here.
sorry, Ian, when you do that, you think about it from a perspective of everyday life. Even if it's 30 degrees and you're jumping in 18 degrees and you still feel that breath wear. If you do that at the beginning of the morning, like it ain't going to really be that temperature because we're not in a hot country. It's 30 degrees in the morning, right? There's always going to be a bit nippy out there anyway, early hours. And what you're doing is you're choosing your body to position itself into a state of stress that you're going to get through.
Mhm.
That's the psychology. So when you tackle your day, something else batters you and your body's gone, this is easier. I've been trying to survive in cold water therapy. It's just this happening. And so you take on stresses differently. And that's the impact is because if you do that compounding every single day, your cortisol levels are massive drop. And that's what the biggest thing I've seen changing me. My levels have dropped.
Yeah.
Humongous amounts.
It's amazing. I always saying to the guy, one of the lads come around this morning, he's like, why are you doing it? He said, this is the worst thing I'm going to do today. I don't care what is ahead of me today. Not do boxing or anything like that anymore. Nothing is going to hurt me as much as this is right now. So once I've done this, what's the book called? Is it Eat the Frog? I think it's called. It might be Eat the Frog first, and it's about getting the shit done in your day right at the beginning of the day. So yeah, for me, doing that, the coffee's nice. That wakes me up a little bit. And I know it sounds really sad. This I'm going to say it live. It makes me feel like a bit of a badass first thing in the morning. I have a little smile to myself and I go, do you know what? Yeah, I'm fucking good, mate, because I can do this. And there's loads of other people who are not. This is the hardest thing I'm going to do today, and I've smashed it.
Every other person is in bed in their warm bed.
Yeah.
That way, and I'm doing random shit that makes me in the 1% club.
Yes.
That's the fact of it is.
Yeah.
It does, doesn't it? Gives you a little
And I'm sure you feel it when you do the running. You go running early in the morning, everyone's still asleep, and I might banging out a marathon.
It's all those challenges, isn't it? It's setting your day up right. Setting your day up where you go, right, let's do something difficult. Let's start the day with something challenging. And if that's exercise or cold water therapy or deep stretching or breath work or whatever, it's just doing something that's going to better you so that your day is ready to go. Whether it's just, I've made my bed every day, no problem at all. Whereas other people just leave themselves in a state of kind of almost disorganization for when they get to the end of the day. It's like, right, it's all these little things just make a big difference. I think we've got to look and do a little plan for next year that we get a small group of us out to see Wim Hof through the project. If we had a couple of, let's say, even if all 5 of us couldn't get out there, but we had 2 of us that went out there with a couple of people from the group, that would be an amazing experience to take 4 or 5 people out there next year and experience something like that. Because I don't know about you, Dave, but I'm all over that for what Rob just said.
Money now.
I'll give you a couple of more examples of this, like just from a perspective of people listening out there. Like one of Wim's stories that he'd done is that he actually took a group of people who had chronic diseases, Crohn's disease, like we had Dimitri talk about this, cancer, that side to it. And he basically took them up the mountain in cold weather in their shorts. And they tracked up it and they were doing the horse dance and all sorts of stuff onto a mountain. They said during that process, they had a army military sort of group doing a coursing. So they were coming down in full headgear. Yeah. And you're talking blizzards. And these people were stood there in their shorts. And he said at that time, the army people were like, oh my God, these are badasses. We want to take pictures of us with them. And those some of the pictures were taken of it. So you think about those from the strength of those individuals. But the thing that pulled me the most in was Wim talked about a couple of stories that have happened actually he said he believes in medicine, traditional medicine, modern medicine we've got now, and traditional techniques, and should we combine them together. So he said, I had a kid, mum and kid come to me. he had cancer and he needed radiotherapy, but his blood count on his white blood cells was too low. So he was there not to cure his cancer, but his there was to prep his body so he could actually have the desired treatment. So he said when they looked at the white blood cells, it was 0.7% of his white blood cells count was actually into his body. 2 weeks later, after doing breathwork and cold water therapy in his center, was 7.8.
Wow. Wow.
And then he had another couple who the guy basically said to him from New Zealand, come over, and they did it. And I wanted to meet him because he was like, he said, oh, have you experienced anything? He said, you've impregnated my wife. He was like, well, I know I've got a long slum, but not to New Zealand. That's what he basically said. And they went through the process. So the husband, the wife had low fertility. So talking about like, you know, she was having the fertility tests and stuff like that. This husband introduced her to it, and she was like a bit like, she was a psychologist. She was like, I'm not into that sort of stuff, but private, secretly, she actually was doing the breath work and the cold showers, and a few like rounds of it. Trial again. They went into the doctors. Doctor said, I don't know why you're here because you're 3 months pregnant. And the couple have named him the couple have named him Wimmy. And when you look at some of the studies they're trying to do now, is endometriosis, which is like 1 in 10 women struggle with endometriosis in the worldwide. Breathwork and cold water therapy is actually proven at the moment through research to actually help combat that problem.
It's nuts.
It's unbelievable. We've spoke about fasting on this show, you know, and we're all kind of engaged that into our life in some fashion or another. Now talking about this sort of stuff, you know, what we're talking about here is 3 unbelievably, very obviously powerful things that are free.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it. No excuses. 0 excuses. There's no one out there that cannot not do this. You know, if you can't afford the cold tub, you just get your wheelie bin and fill it with a hose pipe. Done.
Shower. Start in the shower.
Shower. Yeah. You know, if anything, it's going to save you money on the heating bill. So, yeah.
I'll be honest, it certainly has, Ian. Like in this winter, Kel's been doing cold water showers and I've been enjoying them because I've been thinking, that gas bill's a bit lower.
And your food bill's a bit lower if you're fasting. And you know, it all kind of comes around. I think it's just amazingly powerful sharing that, visualizing the setting, seeing what surprised you the most, and then obviously how comfortable you were in the cold, deep ice kind of tub shows how important the repetition and the compound effect can have on the body. So very interesting. Like Dave says, take my money now. Happy to book it in for next year. And it's something that I think if anyone can afford to do it, you should experience it as long as you're in the right mindset going into it to take it seriously and give it the full commitment by the sounds of it, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great episode, mate. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, you can see you're very calm, collected, you know, not saying you were kind of a bit antsy before, but you can see just like super chilled and methodical with how you're talking and explaining things. And if that's the trigger that's different, you called it centered, then it's very obviously there by the looks of it.
I think as well, sitting 20 minutes in a sauna with Wim Hof face to face, chatting about the world and how he sees it, those are the experiences where you start to really look at it and think, does 90 of this % of this stuff matter? No. But actually, I'm going to focus on my health a bit more.
And you know the different nervous systems you spoke about?
Yeah.
The A and the B, if you like. I think what's quite interesting as well is I'm finding at the moment a big frustration for me is a lot of people are talking about a problem that might happen. I think that's the world that's really, really kind of exploded, especially since lockdown with the way media is talking. And I find myself getting really frustrated by someone saying, well, what if this happens? What if it doesn't? And I think that's something which what you're talking about here, taking yourself out of that that gut, you know, that guilt that Dave talks about, or that kind of, you know, little bit of a disturbed mindset into almost thinking, oh, a problem's going to walk through that door in a minute, and going, well, what if it doesn't? What if something good happens? You know, that's a great mindset to be in.
When you think about it, like one of the things I took away from it was the guy, one of the main trainers there, really, really good, very knowledgeable. He said it's not one or the other, it's a blend. So, you know, like you were talking about let's use your avocado model in 20% estate agent, 80% marketeer. Whereas most agents are the reverse of it, if lucky, 90% estate agent, 10% marketeer. So we think about it from that perspective. Most of us are sitting in 90% SNS, PNS, 10%, if we're lucky. We tend to try and regulate PNS through alcohol, drugs, addiction, dopamine hits, so that sort of side to it. That's what we tend to do. So the view is like, if you sat there and you're thinking about stresses, news, that lot, how do I regulate myself to change that blend, change that percentage? How do I get back to 50%? You're going to feel a lot more better if you pull back to 50 than trying to do 100%. So it's what Wim was talking about is conscious breathing, conscious cold water therapy, conscious mindset.
Yeah.
Is a thing to take away from all of it.
I think I've got like a seesaw in my head, if this makes sense now. And it's like you've got your sympathetic and your parasympathetic nervous systems, which for ease is fight and flight and rest and digest.
Yeah.
In certain stages, you predominantly, so rest and digest is when you're in sleep, that'll predominantly go all the way down to there. Your heart rate will drop like nothing. And in that moment, your body can do certain things around. It'll help digest your food, it'll help clear your brain out, everything else. But in that moment, you're not going to be afraid or be able to fight a bear if it comes your way. The opposite end of the scale, you've got an automatic part of your nervous system, which is fearful about everything that goes on in life. And I think if we can set this, I would imagine it's probably an 80-20, because I think everything is somewhere down the line. If we get our calculators out, there will be an 80-20 to this. But I don't think you can be if you were fully sympathetic, you'd just be asleep. You can't navigate life like that. And it's about finding that balance that's going to allow that pendulum to move easy the way you are. What I think's happening at the moment is the center point of this seesaw on a lot of people out there is off center, which means it's very easy to lift it one way, but it's very difficult to lift it the other way. And it's about us bringing this back a line. I'll use my whoop strap as the center point so that we can navigate between the both. That's how I'm understanding it. Is that bollocks or is that right?
That is like, and what Ian was saying about that conscious part to it, what's going to walk from a door? You're choosing to be in the SMS system. And the difference actually is how the brain works, back to primal side to it. I think I watched some series and they're talking about like, you could be in a sea full of sharks and you could see the sharks and you know they're coming to you. And that's when you activate the SMS system, like, shit, you've got to fight now, or you've got to swim away as quickly as possible. If you are 20 stories up in a hotel and you thought about a shark coming out of the water, walking along the thing, climbing on those steps and going to eat you, the brain reacts in the same way. So your thoughts and what you say to yourself, exactly the same chemical imbalances, cortisol levels, everything rises and that lot. So what your thoughts are and how you choose to think impacts your health. So like if you've got stresses walking through your door, that's where that Reggie Rocky comes out. It's like, oh, what are you talking about? It's not going to come through the door. Like, that's stupid. You reason it. So one of the best books I've always come across is The Fear Bubble by Ant Middleton. Is a massive game changer for anyone in this struggling life. And I'm happy to say it. Ben at Keystones is one of our people. You know, he came to our project. He had a heart attack a few years ago. He was struggling through lockdown. I said, read this book, mate. It will change your perception. He's been a different man since that book, and he even posted about it a few years ago saying, if you ever want to read a book that's going to change your mindset, read The Fear Bubble, because it gets you thinking differently, like Ian, you're saying, through what might happen to actually what is going to happen.
Yeah, it's a great book. I had that as an audio book actually, and it's I got two other Ant Middleton ones afterwards, but none of them are as powerful as that one. It's the best one for sure. Absolutely. Great podcast, mate. We've really kind of unpacked a load of stuff there, and we could probably talk about this for the rest of the afternoon, but Zoom will probably burn out, so we better
get
not.
A beer first.
Is this going out this week? Is it, chaps?
Yeah.
So at the point of obviously this going out, you can listen back to this, Rob, in the journey over to the big event, and I'm sure this experience that you've gone through is going to have a massive benefit to you in this new experience, this new challenge that you want to achieve in the coming weekend as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how how that results and what you take from that experience with Wim going into something like that, because it takes the mental into the physical. So, and they both seesaw, like Dave says, you know, they're yin and yang with each other as well. So, yeah.
It's a basic day. Ian, if you're running through the woods and you see me I'm not passed out, I'm just doing some breath work.
Yeah, high as a kite.
Give him a slap or a tap on the arse, like you said before.
Yeah. Welcome to Reading.
Right. Cheers, guys.